The committee investigating the attempted coup on January 6th has proven in painstaking detail that Donald Trump orchestrated a premeditated plan for overthrowing the government on January 6th, even though his closest aides and advisors knew his stolen election claims were insane. In fact, it was all such an obvious scam that Trump campaign official Kimberly Guilfoyle, the fiancée of Donald Trump Jr., got paid an obscene amount of money for a speech that lasted less than 3 minutes. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. The political world is still processing the aftermath of some of the revelations from the January 6th committee's second hearing on Monday. For example, Rudy Giuliani wants you all to know he is very upset at the accusation leveled by former Trump aides in sworn testimony that he was wasted on election night.
Former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani has now responded to those accusations in the January 6th committee hearings that he was drunk on election night. Giuliani writing in part, quote, "I am disgusted and outraged at the outright lie by Jason Miller and Bill Stepien. I was upset that they were not prepared for the massive cheating, as well as other lawyers around the president. I refused all alcohol that evening. My favorite drink, Diet Pepsi."
Oh, sorry, buddy. You just gave yourself away. No one's favorite drink is Diet Pepsi. Is your favorite cookie Lorna Doones? Diet Pepsi is what you drink on a flight when they don't have Diet Coke, or lemonade, or chocolate milk, or coconut water, or camel spit, or regular Pepsi. If a waiter ever says we don't have Diet Coke, is Diet Pepsi okay? You're legally allowed to stab them with a fork. Maybe Rudy has an unpopular favorite drink on purpose, so he has a cover story with his bar. I'll take a Diet Pepsi. Oh, we don't have that, sir. That's too bad. In that case, I'll have 16 ounces of scotch in a watering can. Also, what do you mean you refused all alcohol that evening? Like people were trying to get you to drink, but you said no. Feels like you're being a little too defensive. You sound like me coming home at 2 a.m. in high school. No, Mom, I'm sober as a judge. Oh, they tried to get me to drink, but I said, nay, I will not sully the good Maya's name with the demon taste of Jägermeister. Oh, no, I'm gonna barf. Move, Mom, move. I doubt anyone was trying to get Rudy drunk, although I could definitely see Trump aides on election night trying to overserve him just so he passes out. We're all upset about Arizona, Mr. Mayor. You know what? Why don't you drink this and then go lie down on the lawn outside? Because according to the sworn testimony obtained by the committee, Rudy was just wandering around the White House on election night looking for the president so we could tell him to declare the election stolen.
Do you remember Rudy Giuliani being at the White House on election night and into the early hours the next morning?
I do.
What do you remember about when he came?
He was, I had heard that he was upstairs, in that aforementioned reception area. And he was looking to talk to the president.
You like to think of the White House as a stately, dignified place full of decorum and history, and then you learn via congressional testimony that a drunken potato goblin was upstairs just wandering around all night, banging on doors, looking not just for anyone, but the president, and by the way, got to him. Excuse me, sir, do you happen to know where Donald is? I need to talk to him. Mr. Mayor, that's just a bust of Abraham Lincoln. He's a bust, all right. He won't even give me my Diet Pepsi. And by the way, it's worth underscoring this point. It's not Democrats saying Rudy was drunk at the White House on election night. It's his fellow Trump supporters, like former Trump campaign spokesman Jason Miller.
Was there anyone in that conversation who, in your observation, had too much to drink?
Like Giuliani.
Tell me more about that. What was your observation about his potential intoxication during that discussion about what the president should say when he's addressed the nation on election night?
And the mayor was definitely intoxicated, but I do not know his level of intoxication when he spoke with the president, for example.
I think we can guess at his level of intoxication. Look at him. For a guy Rudy Giuliani's age, there's very little room between stone cold sober and sloshed out of his mind. It's a little like when your grandma has one glass of wine with an ice cube in it when you're out to dinner and she starts telling you what an ass your father was as a baby. So Rudy may have been drunk on election night, according to former Trump advisors, but his suggestion that Trump just declare the election stolen was not some random drunken impulse. As the committee documented, Trump had been openly declaring 4 months in advance of the election that the only way he could lose was if it was stolen from him. He was just desperately searching for any pretext, any justification at all that he could use to make that declaration. And Rudy, along with a gang of other crazy weirdos, gave it to him. In fact, Trump officials kept telling him over and over and over again that each individual claim of election fraud was nonsense. And rather than push back and offer his own evidence for each claim, Trump would just move on to some other insane claim.
There were so many of these allegations that when you gave him a very direct answer on one of them, he wouldn't fight us on it, but he would move to another allegation. Told him flat out that much of the information he's getting is false and or just not supported by the evidence. We look at the allegations, but they don't pan out.
So this wild claim is thrown out, which, on its face didn't seem, realistic or possible to me.
I told him that the stuff that his people were shoveling out to the public was bullshit. I mean, that the claims of fraud were bullshit.
Quick tangent, when Bill Barr says bullshit in the clip, we don't have to bleep it, but when I repeat him, we do. That's where we're at as a nation. I'm not allowed to say a word on my show, but Donald Trump's former attorney general is. That's some bull. But that testimony is also revealing. Trump kept pitching insane ideas, and then when they were challenged, instead of trying to provide evidence for those claims, he just moved on to the next one. He was like a kid trying to explain to his teacher why he didn't do his homework. A dog ate it, and you don't have a dog. It was someone else's dog. They broke into my house. It ate my homework. And yet, instead of tracking down this criminal canine, you're grilling me about my Tale of Two Cities book reports? That's some
Bull.
Interesting, we had to beep it that time because it wasn't us repeating the news. It was us using him to make a punchline of a joke. So when we use it as a joke, we have to beep it. But when it's newsworthy, we're allowed to do it the way it was said. And I think explaining it the way I'm doing it is newsworthy. Which I think is cool. Let's find out. Let's watch tonight. I think I was making news. Oh, I know if Bill Barr gets a talk show, he can show what I just did. Again, that testimony in particular is so important because it establishes that Trump knew what he was doing. He had criminal intent. It was a plan, not a whim. He and his cronies want you to think January 6th was just some random one-off event that was neither pre-planned nor part of a broader attempt to overthrow the government. For example, Rudy has a podcast because I guess that's what they give you now instead of meds, where he reacted to the first committee hearing by claiming the FBI had found no evidence of pre-planning for the January 6th attack.
They have become not just an embarrassment, they've become a danger to the freedom of Americans. The FBI in its investigation found no such structure. They found that pretty shortly after, they found that there was no evidence of pre-planning of this event. So then you'd have to say it was some kind of a spontaneous, and I think by this time we're all quite convinced now that it's not an insurrection, it's a riot, and one that, according to the FBI, on several occasions was not pre-planned.
All right, first of all, the Justice Department has already charged multiple members of militias and other right-wing groups with seditious conspiracies, so that's wrong. Second, how the does Rudy have more than one camera set up? I mean, I did an actual network television show by myself in my house for a year. All I had was an iPad and a ring light. And then everyone in the YouTube comment section was saying mean things to me like, is this show hosted by Tintin's ghost? I would have killed for a second camera or a cool leather chair like that. Rudy's supposed to be the drunk, crazy person trying to overthrow the government. Meanwhile, he's got a multicam set up in his office with a desk and a leather chair, and I was the one with my hair down to my shoulders talking to a painting of a sea captain. By the way, if you're wondering where the sea captain went, he ran into a little legal trouble. I told him to get off 4chan, but he wouldn't listen. Also, I want to go back to this.
They have become not just an embarrassment, They've become a danger to the freedom of Americans.
Do you really want to call anyone else an embarrassment? Is that really the word you want to use? There was an entire nationally televised congressional hearing this week about you being a sloppy drunk. You used to be on magazine covers as America's mayor, and now you're most famous for screaming outside a landscaping company like a guy who's trying to return a used bag of mulch. So what if I already put... what if I already put the mulch down? I decided I don't want it anymore, so I scooped it all back up and I put it back in the bag. And no, you cannot hold me responsible if there's a dog turd in there. You should blame anyone. It's the dog who broke into my house. So they knew the allegations of fraud were all insane. It was a scam. And there's really no better proof of the fact that it was a scam than this detail revealed by one of the members of the committee. Trump campaign official Kimberly Guilfoyle, who was also Donald Trump Jr.'s fiancée, was paid an absolutely grotesque amount of money for her speech on the day of the insurrection, a speech that lasted less than 3 minutes.
The committee has found information that Kimberly Guilfoyle was paid $60,000 to speak at the rally on January 6th. $60,000 for a speech that was, what, 3 minutes?
If that.
If that, 3 minutes long. And what have you heard over the last several hours since that revelation about how people in Trump world feel about that?
So I want to say two things about that. People in Trump world are sharing that clip. They are aghast that this is the amount of money that she got for a speech to introduce her boyfriend.
$60,000 for a speech that was less than 3 minutes long, and to introduce her fiancé. If there was ever a man who needed no introduction, it's Don Jr. at a far-right conservative rally. That's like going up at a Star Trek convention to introduce William Shatner. They know him. Many years ago, a starship set out on a 5-year mission. Move or we'll kill you! By the way, now I guess we know what she really meant when she said this at the RNC in 2020.
The best is yet to come.
$5,200. Also, if she genuinely thought this was a revolution to save America from tyranny, then why was she getting paid at all? It's not a corporate speaking gig where you charge your standard rate. You think Paul Revere got paid for his midnight ride? I need to bring the lights. I gotta remember my lines. You're making me use my own horse. Who can forget his famous quote? 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, and $60K to cover all my expenses. The committee has proven in exhaustive detail not just that Trump's stolen election claims were BS, but he knew they were BS, and virtually everyone around him told him they were BS. They were both a scam to raise money and a fabricated pretext for an attempted coup. A coup orchestrated in part by Rudy Giuliani, whose blood alcohol level on election night was roughly
60,000.
This has been a closer look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help. Now more than ever, if you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button, stay safe, get vaccinated. We love you.